everyone? Thomas coming at you from SME Trading. Hope everyone had a good old Easter Sunday. It's still Easter right now, and I decided I wanted to ruin my day by looking at the stock market charts. Uh, nah, just kidding a little bit. It's not that bad looking, but we're just gonna get right into it with Daddy Spy. First things first. Um, so Friday, or not Friday, Thursday. Thursday was not a fun day for us Bulls. We got hammered. SPY dropped a point in the quarter. Uh, we got a super duper short term bearish, fully, that's just like the worst thing you could see right there. So, daily chart right here. Got two fat red candles. This red candle fully engulfed by this green candle. Good sign. Next day, fully engulfed red candle. Tells us there was no confidence at that level. No one bought. Everyone sold off. It could just be sell off into the big long weekend. You never know. There's uncertainty. Russia could nuke Ukraine. Who knows? So that could be the cause of it, but it is still not a good sign. You want to see big green candles followed by more green candles to tell you people are buying at this level. People like it. Instead, we essentially just got a super low volume green day, which tells us that no shorts were covering. Shorts are covering when the volume is screaming, like back here when we had these huge fat green days. We didn't get any of that today. Or on Wednesday, we just had a super low melt up. It was looking good for SPY. We broke out of this channel, which if you look on the hourly, you can see that we hardly broke out of it. And once we did break out of it, immediately on Thursday we had a big fat inverse red hammer, which is a very bullish hourly candle. Not bullish, very bearish hourly candle. And yeah, we went back into the channel and it kept rejecting, broke out here just barely, and then big fat red candle rejection, and then just broke out or broke down the rest of the day. So for SPY, looks like we're heading back for the low we had back here at 436. Um, I doubt that will hold. I see SPY going towards this next fib level we have here at 429, which will probably be the bottom of this channel. That will be SPY officially going back into its supply zone. So I can draw this little box here. Not there. So supply and demand, right here. This supply zone, right here. This right under 429. This tells us where buyers have stepped up and it's ripped out of it, and where it's broken back into it, it really breaks down. So I imagine this will be like multiple times in the past where if we get to 429 and we can't hold, then we'll probably rip somewhere down to maybe 420, potentially even lower than that. There's a tiny little gap to fill there at 420. If 420 can't hold, probably 415. If that doesn't hold, then we're looking like we're going back to 410. And I imagine if that doesn't hold, we're going to 400. But the main level I'm looking for is if we can bounce here, we might get a little cheeky double bottom. If we can bounce right here at 436.60, if we can bounce off of that, break out of this channel, we have to actually break through 445. Um, Another very bearish thing that we saw was when SPY came up to this gap, it rejected it hard, and you don't want to see that. If you're a bull, you want to see once we get to the gap, if it breaks through and rips up and fills that gap, that tells you bulls were waiting for the gap. And when we got to the gap, everyone bought and it sent it up. And then once you fill the gap, you don't just want to go straight back down. You want to keep going up, and that tells you people were confident in the gap. They bought the gap, and they didn't sell immediately once the gap filled. They weren't there just for the rip up through the gap, but they were actually holding long. We did not get that. Once we broke out of this channel, we couldn't even test the gap, really. We didn't make it to 445, and we just got a and perfect. Look at this. This is why I yammer on about the 200-day EMA on this hourly chart. Look at that wick up. It wicked up perfectly to that white line. Literally perfect. High of this 444.73. That white line 444.72. So that's the strength of the 200-day EMA on the hourly chart. It's rejected that twice already now. Yeah, and ever since we broke through that, we haven't gotten back over it, and it's rejected it, so that leads me to believe we will go down, down, down even more to 429, and probably by Monday or Tuesday. Um, Otherwise, bullish case, I can see us bouncing off 436, maybe making a double bottom there, and then we bounce back up to 445, and we can actually take 445 and go fill the gap. But I'm not going to be sitting here being like, oh, gap filled, we're good. You got to wait and see what happens after we fill the gap. It tells you everything about the sentiment. If we fill the gap and people are still buying, sentiment's bullish. If the gap fill was just another bull trap and we just shit back down, then you know what's coming next, more downside. So that's what I'm looking at on SPY. I really have no personal opinion on whatever way it's gonna go. There just is so much uncertainty. We're heading into earnings season. We're already in it actually. We've had I think just two of the big four banks have recorded their earnings. JP Morgan, Wells Fargo, they both missed earnings. So that is never a good sign. The market doesn't want to see that. When banks miss earnings, that means consumer lending is going down. People aren't getting auto loans, not getting home loans at such a high rate like they were last year because banks were destroying earnings this time last year. Interest rates are going up, so that's good for banks. But when you see banks start missing earnings, especially from this past quarter where inflation has been higher than it's been in the past 40 years, it's not a good sign for banks. And I think people see banks missing earnings and it scares them. And that's probably the cause of the sell off. There we go. Royalty free music. Keep my headset on. So that is probably my explanation of why we sold off so hard on Thursday. And it's just very, very bearish. I mean, just to the common mouth breather like I am, you see these daily candles, and you just see a big green candle immediately engulfed, not just engulfed, but even a bigger drop than the day before. That just is, and way more volume too, mind you. This had about 100 million shares compared to like 75 million, so about a 30% increase in selling volume. It's never good. Never, 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 never good. Don't want to see that as a bull. Let's see if I can try to find a past examples. And it could just be playing games, you know. It could just be everyone saw that. It was a long weekend. Everyone got spooked and just panic sold, whatever. And we could just be going straight up from here. But my money would be that we're going to see a little bit more downside. It looks like if we can retest the supply zone here at 430 and hold that, then I am very bullish. But moving on, let's check out AMD. AMD. So AMD, we broke out of this descending wedge, like I talked about. We broke out, had not a crazy rip up, and then immediately sold it off. And we've made so just in this little micro trend, you can see we have our lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low. It just like keeps going and going and going for AMD, and I expect we see at least $90 this week, if not down to $80 for AMD, all depending on just the general semiconductor index, basically. Yeah, AMD, I mean, that was a nice breakout from that wedge. It didn't even get close to testing this gap up here. So you see that, and no strength towards the gaps. It just does not look good for bulls. It just is getting sold off into oblivion. We are oversold still on the 4-hour chart. That's what that breakout was from that falling wedge, was a RSI reset. Give us a little breathing room on the RSI so it's not so oversold, and then just dumped straight down to $93 on Thursday for AMD. So $90 psych level, I expect we'll see some bounce there. It's getting about due for a bounce, but yeah, just gotta see strength towards the gaps. If you don't get any strength towards the gaps, it's not looking good. But yeah, just brutal for AMD. I mean, the selling volume is like slowly dying down, so at this point, I expect it's gonna bounce anytime now. A bounce would be actually breaking above one of these lower highs that we have, so at least getting above $99 and then at least taking $100, filling the gap to $100 and then pushing past that, and I will be officially bullish on AMD. But for now, it looks like we're going for that lower low like we have been this entire time. Facebook. So Facebook, same thing. We're in that little micro trend. We're in this. I'll drop here. We're in this here micro trend. We have our little channel here that we're following. Same thing. You can see the lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low, lower 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 lower, and we approached the top of this channel on Wednesday, rejected it pretty hard, and now we have officially broken the last lower low, so we're probably heading for the... This is about Facebook supply zone as well, right here, this fib level, 202.64, so I expect we see Facebook hit that level, and hopefully bounce there. That would be a big, probably a good chance for Facebook to bounce. It's been getting sold off pretty brutally. Also, the RSI on Facebook is heading towards oversold on the 4-hour chart. We're at 36.7 RSI, so yeah, that's about what I'm seeing for Facebook. To the upside, just gotta break out of this channel, really. Ever since we lost that 200-day EMA on the hourly, we just haven't gotten back to it. Gotta break out of this channel. Not just break out of the channel, but actually push up to 218 and form a higher high. And if we can hold that level, I'm bullish. Back on the bull train for Facebook. But right now, it's just at the bottom. It's just broke support before the close on Thursday, and I am waiting to see where I can find support again. My guess would be 203, essentially. That's pretty much it for Facebook. 203 is probably the bottom for this pullback. If we can't hold that, then obviously we're just going to head straight for 195. NVIDIA. So NVIDIA, wow, you have an ugly chart. NVIDIA also getting sold down into oblivion. I love this Beethoven music. Turn it down a little bit. Oh, NVIDIA. Alright. See if I can actually get to the right chart. Here we go. So NVIDIA, holy freaking gap fill. That is what I see on NVIDIA. Oh, look at this. Wow, look at that. It tested that perfectly. So we have this trend line right here that it almost tested on Wednesday and rejected hard. We sold off, sold just terrible price action. Absolutely abysmal for NVIDIA. We're heading towards the ultimate support that it's had this entire pullback since the start of the year. We're in the supply zone right now. I expect we at least test 206.50. Pray to God for us bulls that it can hold that level, because if it doesn't, it's going to do what AMD has done and broken through, and we'll just sell off probably down to like 168 on NVIDIA. If we can't hold this support, we have support here at 196, but NVIDIA is also just terribly, terribly oversold. I expect a bounce this week at some point, and I need to see a meaningful bounce, an actual break of resistance, break of the point of control at 224.50, and an actual push up, not just these two little weak green candles. Yeah, these semiconductor, the selling we've been seeing in the semiconductor uh, sector is just unreal. Absolutely unreal. And that takes me to the SMH, the semiconductor ETF right here. We have, bam, we're right at support. We're $1 away from support. Um, yeah, this is the worst sell-off semis have had since the start of the year, honestly. Like since it sold off from 315 all the way down to like 248. I mean, what were we at 284 and now we're at 230. Just in terms of like how fast it's gone down. Um, yeah, really not much. I mean, semis are just at support. If it doesn't bounce here, like if it doesn't bounce Monday, if Monday's just another bloody butthole ripping day, then semis are gonna they're gonna feel the pain. And I mean, my thesis behind the selling in the semiconductor space has just been fear that they're gonna miss earnings, just in the whole tech industry, honestly. Usually, if you see a rip up to earnings, that tells you people are excited for earnings. There's some positive sentiment around earnings. That's what we had back here in the semiconductor space. We had a big pop up to earnings, and afterwards it sold off again. But it tells me people are either guessing that earnings are going to be bad, or they already know earnings are going to be really bad. I would expect them to be worse than people expect. So that would kind of explain the sell off. And them being worse than expected doesn't tell me that it's just going to keep selling off. It tells me. Almost choked. It tells me that people know their earnings are going to be bad. I mean, it's a pretty easy bet that they're going to be bad. Their interest rates are going up. It hurts these growth stocks. Semis are like one of the biggest growth sectors. Their P&E each stock is like 50. Uh, it tells me that price or the bad earnings are getting priced in right now. They're not going to sell off after a bad earnings. Instead, they're probably going to rip up off of bad earnings because it's already been priced in. That usually happens. It kind of happens the other way around too. If it rallies in the earnings and it's kind of pricing in that earnings are going to be good, but then if they aren't, then they go down. But yeah, it's weird. I'm not convinced that if semis have not great earnings that they're just going to completely sell off just because of the nature of the sector. Like Nvidia, TSM had good earnings recently too. That's the weird thing. The main semi, the biggest one in the whole space and the whole sector just had good earnings. TSM did because demand is just skyrocketing. It's bizarre. I cannot I really can't explain why semis are just selling off this hard. It's just ridiculous. So to me, it's a good buying opportunity unless the support doesn't hold, and then unless earnings are not just bad, but way worse than everyone's expecting. Like I think this is getting priced in that they're going to be rough earnings, guidance is going to be lower because these past 2 years have just been ridiculous. Then they'll get priced in, and we'll see slowly but surely, we'll climb out of this canyon that we're in right now because semis are just, and they're still in the downtrend. That's the thing I've been harping about. They're still in the downtrend. We got our lower low, lower high, lower low, and then over here in this whole push up back on the 29th of March, the peak of this rally, we got our lower high. We could not break past 290. So we got our lower high, and that leads me to believe we'll be seeing lower low, unfortunately. And a lower low would probably mean we're heading towards 222 for the semis. So that's about another 8 or 9% drop for the semiconductor sector. Um, yeah, let's look at the whole tech sector itself, the Qs. So the Qs, we're back in supply zone here. We broke out of this falling wedge, but what did we do? We ripped out and we rejected hard off of the gap. We couldn't even get up to the gap. Just what I was talking about. Normally, you want to see as we're getting towards the gap, a nice push, push, push to the gap and then blast through the gap. But we did not get that. We couldn't even make it to the gap and sold off super duper hard on Thursday. So, what happened here at the levels? We failed our level here at 341, and once that level failed, it tried to break back up, and then just rejected hard off the hourly 9 EMA there, and we were doomed ever since then. And we've Now we're sitting right at support at 338. If 338 doesn't hold, yeah, it's not looking great. If 338 does not hold, it is not looking good at all for the Nasdaq. I expect after that we'll go to 326, probably. The bottom of this line right here would be about 329, but to the upside, we just have to see a push up past this level, 341. Actually take 341, actually push back down, hold it, push back up off of it, go to fill the gap. Once we fill the gap, actually push up after the gap is filled. Don't let the gaps fake you out. They'll get filled, and just as soon as they get filled, the switch will flip and it'll go straight back down. So you gotta wait for the gap to fill. Gotta wait for confirmation that we're pushing past the gap towards the next gap, which is actually huge for the Nasdaq. I've been chirping about it for a while now, 356 to 359. So that's about a 1% gap on the Nasdaq. Those gaps will get filled eventually. It could be a week from now. It could be a year from now. Yeah. If we can't hold that level that I mentioned previously at 330, I expect we drop all the way down to 317. Can't hold that, and we'll have to really zoom out for that one. Can't hold that, and we go to let's have a look. Yeah, 316. That's about the next one, but probably about uh yeah, 307, and then just major psych level of 300, likely for the Nasdaq if that doesn't hold. Yeah, we're still in the bear market. Still in a bear market for the Nasdaq. Hate to say it, but we are over 20% from over 20% down from the peak at 408. We're at 338 right now. So by definition, we're back in a bear market for the Nasdaq. Yeah. Oh, and then we got one earnings play I'm looking at here. Not really a play, but just something that piques my interest. One of the big four banks has earnings. Bank of America on Monday. Um, it has a super duper bearish chart. Just ridiculous. We're in this channel here. We had a rally on Wednesday, just like everything else. Or not a rally, but a nice little green day, but then just completely tanked down. We tanked below support at $38.10. We're probably heading down towards $33 for Bank of America. I assume, just like every other bank already, it'll have bad earnings and we'll likely see 33. If we do see that level, I like it to the upside for a bounce. It's just getting brutally sold off. It's oversold on the daily again, which is honestly ridiculous for banks. It's only been oversold on the daily once since the COVID crash, and then it was oversold back in early March. So banks are just getting absolutely hammered. Way too oversold in my opinion. I'm looking for bounce plays on banks, but yeah, that's about all I got for earnings. Not really much else going on in earnings. ASML has earnings, so that's kind of big for semiconductors. They're the ones who basically have the monopoly on the machines that are actually used by semiconductor companies to actually make the chips. So that will kind of show us a lot about the semiconductor industry. If they're in high demand, then that's good for the semis. But if they miss earnings, it's going to be bad for semis. Very, very bad. So something to watch out for. Otherwise, yeah. Hope everyone you all have a good time tomorrow in the markets. I'm expecting another sell-off. Let's look at SPY. See if we have any. Yeah, futures are down. Futures are down bad on SPY. So I'm gonna actually look at SPY. Factor in the futures here. Yeah, futures are already at 435 on SPY. So if we open around there, I think we'll easily see 429 tomorrow. But yeah, that's just speculation. Yeah, that's it. I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Peace.